We've been sold a story, a sweet, seductive, dangerous story. It whispers, you have time, and the moment you buy into that illusion, your life starts leaking energy. You stop. You wait. You delay your greatness. Not because you don't want it, not because you're not capable, but because you think you can do it later. Later is the biggest con in the human experience. We say, I'll start the business when the kids are older. I'll get healthy after this project wraps up. I'll leave the job I hate when things calm down. But the truth is this, things won't calm down. The perfect moment isn't coming. And the longer you keep telling yourself there's time, the more you dig a grave for your dreams with your own two hands. Time is a concept. We created it to track the passing of daylight, the shifting of seasons, the aging of our bodies. But we twisted that tool into a weapon we use against ourselves. Instead of measuring time, we let it measure our value. We let it dictate when it's appropriate to change, to evolve, to demand more. As if the clock is in charge of your destiny. Here's what most people don't understand. Procrastination isn't about laziness. It's about fear. Fear dressed up in the polite clothes of time. You don't delay because you're tired. You delay because deep down, you don't feel worthy yet. You're afraid of failing. You're afraid of judgment. You're afraid that if you really try, really go all in, and still fall short, it'll prove the worst story you secretly believe about yourself, that you're not enough. So instead, you cling to time. You worship later, like a god that might save you. But later isn't real. There is no later. There is only now and what you choose to do with it. Think about it. Every life-changing decision you've ever made happen in a moment. Not a decade, not a week, a moment. One instant where you decided enough. Enough of the pain, enough of the excuses, enough of the waiting. And you moved. Action doesn't need time. It needs truth. You don't need more time. You need more courage. You need more clarity. You need more hunger. Because the people who change their lives, they don't wait for time to give them permission. They command their moments. They squeeze the juice out of every hour. They bend the calendar around their will. They look at the clock and say, if you work for me now, and don't get it twisted, those people aren't lucky. They're not born different. They just stopped negotiating with time. They stopped believing the lie. They chose urgency. They chose intensity. They chose to show up. Let me tell you something no one tells you. Time does not care about your goals. Time does not care about your pain. Time does not care that you're tired or overwhelmed or unsure. Time is a river that moves whether you swim, sink, or sit still. And if you don't start swimming, if you don't start moving, you'll wake up one day washed up on the shore of regret, wondering how it all slipped away. But it didn't slip. You postponed action, not because of lack of time, but because of lack of decision, lack of commitment. You waited for a green light that was never going to come. Do you know what creates momentum? Decision, not plans, not vision boards, not journal entries, decisions. Decisions backed by action. Every time you say tomorrow, you kill a piece of your power. Every time you say next year, you put a brick on the wall that separates you from the life you crave. Your dreams are on the other side of now. And yeah, it's scary to step up. It's terrifying to stop waiting and finally bet on yourself. Because once you do, there are no more excuses, no more hiding, no more blaming time. But that's where your freedom is. Because when you stop pretending that time is the problem, when you rip the mask off procrastination and look it in the eye, you realize the truth. You've been holding the keys the entire time. You've had the strength. You've had the vision. You've had the fire. The lie was never about time. The lie was the belief that you needed more of it before you could become who you were always meant to be. Every single day, from the moment you wake up, you are building something. Whether you know it or not, whether you admit it or not, you are laying bricks, drawing blueprints, making structural decisions. You are constructing your reality, not just responding to it. And yet, most people walk through life like tenants, not architects. They live as if their circumstances have already been drafted in concrete and steel, as if their dreams were denied at the zoning office of fate. But here's the truth: reality isn't something you inherit, it's something you design. Look around your life right now. The relationships you have, the money you make, the body you live in, the emotions you feel most often, all of it is the result of what you've allowed, what you've repeated, what you've decided. And if that stings good, that means you're waking up to your power. You were not born with a finished life. You were born with a blank plot of land and a set of tools. The environment you came from, the pain you experienced, the limits others placed on you, those are just terrain conditions. They don't dictate the size of your foundation. They don't control how high your skyscraper can go. They only become permanent if you keep building the same floor over and over. But most people never pick up the tools. They blame the terrain. They say things like, this is just how life is, or it wasn't meant for more. They live inside a house someone else designed, a belief system handed down by parents, culture, school, trauma. And they never think to knock down the walls and build something bold, something that reflects their soul. You've got to understand your mind is the blueprint. Your habits are the hammer. Your words are the nails. Every thought you think is a line in the blueprint. Every action you take is a strike of the tool. So if you keep thinking you're not good enough, not smart enough, not worthy enough, guess what you're building? A cage. If you keep acting out of fear, playing small, avoiding risk, then you're reinforcing the walls of mediocrity. You're building a life that protects your doubt instead of expanding your destiny. But the reverse is also true. If you start thinking with intention, I am the designer of my life, not the victim of it, then you start drawing different boldness. You start building with steel, not straw. You make decisions not based on fear, but based on vision. People think designing their life means having a plan. That's part of it. But design isn't just planning, it's owning. It's saying, this is mine, my life, my direction, my outcome. You don't have to know every step, you just have to know you're the one who gets to take them. Design means taking radical responsibility. It means looking at every area of your life. Your health, your relationships, your career, your mindset, and asking, did I choose this or did I accept this? Because there's a massive difference. Choice is power. Acceptance without challenge is surrender. If your life feels cluttered with stress, confusion, frustration, stagnation, it's not because life is broken. It's because your design needs renovation. And like any renovation, it starts by knocking down some walls. Old beliefs, old routines, old stories. You tear down what doesn't serve you to make space for what does. It might mean breaking away from people who drain you. It might mean waking up earlier to build momentum. It might mean investing in skills, shifting your environment, cutting off distractions, or simply telling the truth to yourself and to the world about what you really want. That's the difference between a life by design and a life by default. One is built with vision, the other is built with compromise. And make no mistake, this is not about control, it's about creation. You can't control every event, every challenge, every loss. But you can control your response. You can choose what to do with what happens. And that choice, that's the moment you pick up the pen and redraw the map. There is no external force more powerful than a human being who has decided to live on purpose. When you decide that you're not just going to pass through life, but that you're going to shape it, mold it, command it, everything starts to change. You don't wait for permission. You don't look for validation. You build in faith. You build in fire. You build in the face of fear. Because that's what an architect does. They see space and they imagine structure. They see potential and they turn it into power. They take what others overlook and they transform it into something unshakable. You are the architect. You always have been. You always will be. The only question is, what will you build next? Pain is one of life's greatest teachers, but most people treat it like a prison guard. They feel the sting of disappointment, the burn of failure, the ache of rejection, and they lock themselves inside a mental cell, shutting down dreams, lowering standards, shrinking identity. They think pain means stop. But pain isn't a signal to quit, it's a signal to look deeper. It's not a wall, it's a doorway. It's not the end of the road, it is the road. You've been told to avoid pain, to numb it, to suppress it. You've been told it's bad, dangerous, unproductive. But if that were true, why does pain show up every time you stand at the edge of growth? Why does it scream the loudest right before a breakthrough? Pain doesn't come to break you. It comes to wake you. It's not a punishment. It's feedback. It's information wrapped in emotion, and the wise don't run from it. They listen to it, they learn from it, they use it. Every person you admire has danced with pain. Every leader, creator, champion, change maker, at some point they were brought to their knees. They hit the wall. They felt abandoned, misunderstood, betrayed, stretched beyond their limit. And in that moment, they had a choice to stay in the cage or follow the compass. Use the pain to justify giving up, or use the pain to fuel transformation. See, when you touch something hot, the pain pulls your hand back. That's protective. But emotional pain doesn't work like that. Emotional pain doesn't want you to retreat. It wants you to reflect. It wants you to grow. The discomfort in your gut when you betray your values, the heartbreak when a relationship turns toxic, the deep unrest of living below your potential. These aren't signs that you're weak. They're signs that you're ready for more. They're internal alarms going off saying something here isn't aligned, something here needs to change, but most people don't listen. They sedate the pain with distraction, food, alcohol, scrolling, overworking, under living. They numb the signal and keep walking in the wrong direction, and then wonder why they feel empty. Because when you ignore pain, you disconnect from purpose. When you deny pain, you silence your internal compass. And without that compass, you drift, sometimes for years, sometimes for a lifetime. The truth is, pain can show you what matters. It can reveal your values, your boundaries, your capacity. It can sharpen your instincts, strengthen your resolve, deepen your character. But only if you stop seeing it as your enemy. Pain isn't here to trap you. It's here to teach you. It's not trying to limit you. It's trying to point you toward the exact area you need to level up. There's a kind of pain that comes from staying small. That quiet desperation, that tension in your chest when you settle for less. That's not life being cruel. That's life trying to redirect you. That's your soul saying, we're meant for more. And then there's the pain of growth, the soreness of progress, the discomfort of stretching beyond what you thought possible. That's not punishment either. That's the price of evolution. You've got to learn to distinguish the two. The pain of stagnation and the pain of transformation feel similar in the moment, but they come from completely different sources. One is decay. The other is rebirth. One drains you. The other builds you. The only way to tell the difference is to stop running, get still, and ask, what is this pain trying to tell me? Sometimes pain is saying, you need to let go. Let go of that job, that relationship, that version of yourself that no longer fits. Other times pain is saying, you're on the right path. Keep going. The work is hard because it's meaningful. The struggle is intense because you're on the edge of something real. Don't confuse discomfort with misdirection. Don't mistake friction for failure. People spend their whole lives trying to build cages that keep pain out. They armor up, they disconnect, they pretend they're fine. But the stronger you build the cage, the more you cut yourself off from life itself. Because pain isn't separate from life. It's the pulse of it. The more fully you're willing to feel it, the more deeply you're willing to live. There is gold in pain if you're willing to mine it. There is clarity in pain if you're brave enough to listen. And there is power in pain if you refuse to bow to it. If you stand up and say, if I see you, I feel you. But you don't own me, you guide me. Pain doesn't have to be a cage. It was never meant to be. It was meant to be your compass. A blazing, undeniable, brutally honest force pointing you toward the next level of your life. I'm not ready. It's the quiet excuse that has killed more dreams than failure ever could. It sounds reasonable, even responsible. It wears the mask of wisdom and caution. But in truth, it's a myth, a lie we tell ourselves to justify staying small, to justify hiding, to justify avoiding the very things that would set us free. Nobody is ready, not at the beginning. Readiness is a feeling that shows up after action, not before it. You don't wait to feel ready before you step into the arena. You step into the arena and become ready through the fire. You get ready by doing. You get strong by lifting. You get confident by risking. The myth of readiness convinces you to wait for some magical alignment of time, talent, money, clarity, confidence, as if success is a product of perfect timing instead of powerful decision. The people who change the world, the ones who write new rules, start movements, build legacies, they didn't wait to feel ready. They were scared. They were uncertain. They had doubts. But they stepped forward anyway. They understood that hesitation is a slow form of death. That perfection is a form of procrastination. They weren't fearless. They were courageous. They moved in spite of the fear. Because fear is not the enemy, and action is. The moment you tell yourself you're not ready, what you're really saying is that you're not willing to feel uncomfortable, that you want the outcome without the uncertainty. But discomfort is the cost of expansion. You can't grow from the sidelines. You can't evolve in the waiting room. If you want to become someone you've never been, you've got to do things you've never done. That means stepping into the unknown without a guarantee. It means showing up without a script. It means saying yes when your brain is screaming wait. You don't prepare your way into a new identity. You act your way into it. Preparation has its place. But there's a point where planning becomes hiding, where research becomes avoidance, where the search for certainty becomes an addiction. And it's sneaky because it looks productive. But it's not momentum. It's a loop, a trap, a way to stay safe while convincing yourself you're making progress. You're buffering, you're not preparing, you're postponing. The deeper truth is, there is no version of you that will ever feel fully ready for the things that matter most. You will never feel completely ready to fall in love again after heartbreak. You will never feel totally ready to launch the business, take the stage, change careers, raise your standards, or finally speak your truth. And that's okay. Readiness is not a prerequisite for impact. Decision is. Commitment is. Courage is. Every major breakthrough in your life will begin with a step you didn't feel ready to take. And that's because real growth doesn't come from confidence. It comes from courage, from choosing to act before you feel certain, from trusting yourself to figure it out after you start. The greatest shifts in your life won't come from a plan. They'll come from a decision to stop living by fear's rules, to stop letting the myth of ready be your master. You've been tricked into believing there's more security in waiting, that if you just wait long enough, you'll somehow become more qualified. But waiting doesn't make you more capable. It makes you more comfortable. And comfort is not your goal. Purpose is. Impact is. Becoming who you were born to be is. And that journey demands risk. It demands that you leap before the net appears, that you speak before the words feel polished, that you move before the path is clear. You're not here to live a rehearsed life. You're here to live a real one, a bold one. You're here to build something extraordinary with the tools you have, not the tools you're hoping to have someday. The hammer is in your hand right now. The time is not someday when. The time is now, not because you're willing. Willing to be messy, willing to be vulnerable, willing to go anyway. That willingness, that defiant, relentless willingness, is what separates those who dream from those who do. You don't have to know it all. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to be done waiting for permission. You have to be done believing the myth that one day you'll wake up with zero fear, zero doubt, perfect clarity, and a green light from the universe. That day isn't coming. And the longer you wait for it, the further you drift from the life that's calling your name right now. Ready is not a destination. Ready is a decision you make. It's a moment where you stop asking, "Can I?" and start declaring, "I will." The results you see in your life, the money in your bank account, the energy in your body, the quality of your relationships, the strength of your convictions, they all stem from one source, your identity. Not who you think you are when you're pumped up, not the mask you wear in public, but the deep-rooted beliefs you hold about yourself in the quiet, private moments. That invisible architecture within you is shaping everything outside of you. Your identity is not just influencing your actions, it's directing your destiny. Most people try to change their lives by changing their behavior. They set goals, they build habits, they download another productivity app. But if the identity underneath those actions doesn't shift, the change won't last. You can only act out of alignment with who you believe you are for so long before your subconscious pulls you back into the comfort zone of your old self-image. That's why people self-sabotage. That's why they crash their progress. It's not a discipline problem. It's an identity conflict. You don't get what you want. You get who you are. If you see yourself as someone who always struggles, you'll unconsciously create struggle. If you believe you're not worthy of love, you'll push it away or settle for less. If you tell yourself you're bad with money, you'll sabotage your financial breakthroughs. Your identity becomes your thermostat, regulating the limits of what's normal for you. And until you raise that internal setting, no amount of external change will stick. This is why surface-level strategies aren't enough. You can white-knuckle your way to temporary success, but if deep down you still believe you're not the kind of person who wins, you'll find a way to lose. You'll unconsciously find ways to prove your old story right, because identity always seeks congruence. The human mind is wired to avoid cognitive dissonance. It wants alignment between belief and behavior. So when there's a gap between the life you say you want and the identity you secretly carry, your mind will sabotage either the goal or the belief, but 9 times out of 10, the belief wins. This is the power of shifting identity. When you stop trying to force results and start becoming the kind of person who naturally creates those results, everything changes. Success becomes a byproduct, not a grind. Consistency becomes second nature, not a constant battle. You're not trying to act like a leader, you're one. You're not trying to be disciplined. You see yourself as someone who doesn't negotiate with commitment. That shift in self-perception rewires your choices, your patterns, your standards. Think about someone who's in phenomenal shape. They don't wake up debating whether to work out. It's part of who they are. The decision is already made because it's tied to their identity. They don't see exercise as a chore. They see it as something congruent with their self-image. Contrast that with someone who still sees themselves as trying to get in shape. That person is constantly negotiating with themselves. Every action feels like resistance because it contradicts who they still believe they are. The real work is not just in doing, it's in becoming. That means intentionally designing your identity instead of inheriting it from your past. You're not bound by your history. You are not your mistakes. You are not your upbringing. You are not your trauma. Those things may have shaped you, but they do not define you unless you let them. Every day, You're either reinforcing the old identity or installing a new one through your thoughts, through your language, through your standards. Language is especially powerful. Every time you say, I'm not good at that, you're laying another brick in the foundation of limitation. Every time you say, I'm the kind of person who figures things out, you're reinforcing possibility. Words are not just descriptors, they're creators. They solidify identity, and identity shapes action. That's how you change your destiny, not by chasing different outcomes, but by becoming someone for whom those outcomes are natural. You can't outperform your identity. But the beauty is, you can upgrade it. You can rewrite the narrative. You can train your brain to believe in a different version of you, one that's aligned with the life you crave. And this isn't about pretending. This isn't about ego. It's about stepping into a higher standard of self. It's about seeing the greatness in you before the world does. It's about aligning your thoughts, your behaviors, and your self-image so powerfully that life has no choice but to rise to meet it. Every future you desire already exists as a reflection of a particular identity. The question is, are you willing to step into it before it feels real? Before you have the evidence, because that's how real change begins. Not with certainty, not with proof, but with a bold declaration, this is who I am now. And then, moment by moment, you live in alignment with that truth. You speak it, you act from it, you embody it until the world has no choice but to reflect it back to you. Because in the end, identity drives everything. It shapes your choices. It builds your habits. It sets your ceiling. And when you shift identity, you shift destiny. There comes a moment in every life when you realize the life you're living isn't entirely your own. You wake up and sense it, that subtle discomfort, that quiet dissatisfaction, that gnawing feeling in your gut that says, this isn't it. And it's not because you're lazy or because you don't want more. It's because somewhere along the line, you stopped raising your standards and started accepting someone else's version of success, someone else's blueprint, someone else's dream. Most people don't consciously choose mediocrity. They drift into it. They inherit beliefs, rules, and expectations from the people around them. Family, culture, school, society. And they build their life inside that framework. They go to the college they were told would lead to security. They take the job that offers stability. They chase approval instead of purpose. And slowly, they disconnect from their own fire. They forget the sound of their own voice. They trade authenticity for acceptance, and they call it being responsible. But responsibility without intention is just obedience. And obedience to someone else's dream will never satisfy your soul. You don't get what you want. You get what you tolerate. And your standards are the thermostat that determines the temperature of your life. If your standards are low, you'll settle for toxic relationships, numbing distractions, and a career that pays the bills but bankrupts your spirit. You'll justify it all in the name of being realistic. But realism is just a word people use to rationalize playing small. The truth is, your life right now is a reflection of the standards you've been willing to live with. Not your potential, not your dreams. Your standards. That's the brutal reality. And it's also the most empowering truth you'll ever hear, because it means that the moment you decide to raise your standards, everything changes. Not eventually, immediately. The shift doesn't happen when your circumstances change. The shift happens the moment you stop accepting less than what you know you're capable of. But raising your standards isn't about yelling affirmations into a mirror. It's not about wishing for more. It's about demanding more from yourself. It's about refusing to negotiate with weakness. It's about taking full ownership of your life, your body, your mind, your emotions, your work, your relationships, and saying, this is the new normal now. That kind of decision doesn't come from comfort. It comes from pain, from disgust, from hitting a point where you're so done with the excuses, so sick of the same stories, that something inside you snaps. And for the first time in a long time, you stop making room for average. You stop explaining your circumstances and start engineering your life. You start surrounding yourself with people who challenge your complacency instead of validating your limitations. You start using your time like it matters, because it does. You start eating, thinking, speaking, moving, and acting like the person you're becoming, not the one you've been dragging through life. You make discipline non-negotiable. You make vision mandatory. You make you the standard, not the world, not the past, not your doubts. When you raise your standards, you stop chasing happiness and start creating alignment. Because true fulfillment doesn't come from pleasure. It comes from progress. It comes from knowing that you are becoming the kind of person who does not settle. The kind of person who creates, the kind of person who sets the bar and lives above it. But understand this, when you raise your standards, the world will push back. People will call you arrogant, extreme, unrealistic. That's because your transformation threatens their comfort. Your elevation reminds them of their stagnation. And if you're still living for their approval, you'll lower your standards just to keep their love. You'll shrink so they feel safe. You'll dim your fire so they don't feel the heat of their own inaction. That's the moment you've got to decide, whose dream am I really living? If it's not yours, you're wasting time. You're building someone else's castle with your energy. You're climbing someone else's ladder, only to get to the top and realize it's leaning against the wrong wall. You don't want to wake up one day successful in a life that makes you feel empty. You don't want to reach the finish line and realize you ran the wrong race. You were not born to be a replica. You were born to be a force, but the world doesn't reward intention. It rewards standard. If you don't raise them, you get what's given. If you do, you build what's earned. This is your life, and no one's coming to live it for you. Not your parents, not your boss, not society. The only person who can shape your future is the one reading these words right now. And that person must choose, set the standard or surrender to someone else's. Design the dream or decorate the cage. The past is a story and the future is a guess. The only thing that's real, the only thing that's alive is this moment, right now. This breath, this beat, this blink. Everything else is an illusion. You can't act in the past. You can't touch the future. You can only move now. And yet, most people spend their lives everywhere except here. They relive regrets, replay failures, and rewrite conversations that already happened. Or they drift into the unknown of someday, a someday that never arrives, waiting for the perfect time, the perfect mood, the perfect alignment to finally take action. The mind is a master escape artist. It will take you anywhere but here, because here's where truth lies. Here's where you can't hide behind distraction or delay. Here is where you're faced with the reality that the only thing you truly control is the decision in front of you. And that's terrifying for some people. Because if now is all we've got, it means the excuses stop here too. It means there's no one else to blame, no more time to waste, no more stories to lean on. The moment you stop running from the now, you start owning your power. And make no mistake, there is power in now. Immense, limitless, life-altering power. This is the space where transformation lives. You don't shift your life in the future. You shift it by choosing differently now. The workout happens now. The conversation happens now. The risk, the idea, the change, the breakthrough, it all begins with this second. The reason most people stay stuck isn't because they lack potential. It's because they keep waiting for a future version of themselves to save them. They keep outsourcing their greatness to a day that doesn't exist. But no future version of you is coming to do the work. There is no superhero waiting in the wings. There's only you, right here, right now. The myth of later is seductive. It tells you that relief is just around the corner, that change is coming, that there will be a better time. But later is just a mental drug, a way to soften the sting of not choosing now. It lets you believe you're going to change without having to feel the heat of immediate discomfort. But all growth requires that heat. It requires the friction of decision. And decisions only happen now. The future is created one now at a time. You build it with the actions you take today, with the standards you enforce today, with the boundaries you set, the calls you make, the words you speak today. You don't get to skip the moment and expect the miracle. You don't get to ignore the now and expect the results. You must be here, fully, unapologetically, completely engaged with this breath, this thought, this step, because now is the only place where creation happens. Every invention, every revolution, every masterpiece, every comeback, it was born in a moment of now when someone chose to stop waiting. When you're connected to the now, you're unshakable. You're not pulled by the anxiety of tomorrow or the guilt of yesterday. You're present, and presence is power. Because in presence, you stop reacting and start responding. You stop spinning in emotion and start making clear, committed moves. You can't lead your life from the rearview mirror. You can't drive your destiny looking at the fog ahead. You lead by locking into the current second and deciding what matters most now. Every habit is built now. Every discipline is forged now. Every change is made now. Your health doesn't shift when you get the right diet plan. It shifts when you stop reaching for the thing that numbs you in this moment. Your business doesn't grow when the market stabilizes. It grows when you stop scrolling, stop doubting, and make the uncomfortable call now. Your relationships don't evolve when the other person changes. They evolve when you show up with truth, presence, and intention now. The greatest lie you've been told is that you have time. Time is not promised. Time is not guaranteed. You don't find time, you make it, and only by choosing to be here, fully alive, fully present. Life doesn't reward the hesitant. It doesn't hand out second chances like candy. It responds to movement. It responds to presence. It responds to the person who shows up like this moment is everything. Because it is. The only true moment of power is now. Not because it's convenient, not because it's comfortable, but because it's real. You can only change what you face. You can only build what you act on. You can only live what you embrace. You can only become who you're meant to be in the moment you decide to be that person, not later. Not eventually, not when it feels better or makes more sense. Now, let me leave you with this: everything you've ever wanted, freedom, passion, power, love, fulfillment, it's not out there in the distance. It's here, right now. But you will never reach it by waiting. You will never taste it by playing small. You don't need more time. You don't need more approval. You don't need permission. What you need is to decide. Decide that you're done living by default. Decide that your life will no longer be a reaction, but a creation. Decide that from this moment forward, your standards rise, your identity aligns, and your actions match the life you were born to build. No more waiting. No more someday. No more excuses. The door is open, but only you can walk through it. So step up, step in, and design the life you deserve. Now, thank you for showing up. Thank you for choosing more. Thank you for being bold enough to bet on you.